OK, let's return to our top story now. Boris Johnson has won the first ballot of the Conservative leadership race, receiving more than 114 votes. The result puts Mr Johnson 71 votes ahead of second place Jeremy Hunt, and it means that he's consolidated his position as odds-on favourite to replace Theresa May inside number 10. Well, joining me from Westminster is the Guido Fawkes reporter, Tom Harwood, who's also something of a Boris fan. What's your reaction then to today's result?
Well, it's pretty extraordinary. Boris's team for the last week had been hoping that he might just clinch getting into that three-figure range, but he smashed that target and got well beyond it, well beyond any public declaration. And just take a step back and compare us now to the position that we're in today compared with 2 or 3 weeks ago, where people were sort of umming and ahhing about who'd even make first place, where there were serious questions as to which candidate would be the one to nudge ahead, which candidate would be the one that would gather the best support of Leavers, Remainers, who'd pick up the ERG, who'd pick up the One Nation Tories. But it's been pretty astonishing over the course of really just the last 2 weeks that Boris has consolidated both those wings of the party. And then you've got another rank, really sort of a second tier in this contest, battling out for second place. That seems to be the real race now. And there's going to be quite a ferocious fight between Jeremy Hunt, Michael Gove, and maybe even Dominic Raab and Sajid Javid, who all did about as well as could be expected today. But Boris just well ahead of them all.
There's a long way to go, of course, as we know, and the critics of Boris Johnson are coming out in force. We heard earlier from Rory Stewart, who's also one of the contenders. He got through this first round as well, and he was saying that Boris Johnson needs to be clearer on Brexit. Is he prepared to force a no deal through Parliament? Because, frankly, we need to know that, and he hasn't explained it.
Well, Boris has been very clear that no deal should always be on the table. It's not the outcome that he wants for the country. He wants to get a good deal. But the way that you get a good deal isn't to put away no deal, isn't to say that we're taking no deal off the table. How would you bargain for a better deal if you do that? So it's quite a pragmatic approach that he's taking. He's going to go back to Brussels and try and get those concessions that some argue Theresa May didn't even ask for. We're going to have a much more positive negotiating stance if Boris gets through. But you're right, there's still almost 2 months of this leadership contest to go, so anything could happen. But
it's not right, though,
true to say.
It's not right or democratic, though, is it, to lock the doors of Parliament in order to get a no deal through, surely, to not listen to the will of Parliament?
Well, Boris hasn't said that he would do that, but it's right to not disarm any of the tools that are in your pocket. What Remainers in Parliament have done over the last few months is unprecedented moves of stealing, really, the prerogative to put legislation down on the table from the executive, almost a sort of coup that has been enacted and tried to be enacted just yesterday by the Labour Party. There have been incredible, unprecedented steps, aided and abetted by a far from impartial speaker, that have been delivered by Remainers in Parliament. So it's about time that Leavers actually don't stop bringing a spoon to a gunfight. It's time that Leavers in Parliament turn up with proper weapons. These aren't actually unprecedented things. Clement Attlee prorogued Parliament back in 1948 to overcome the will of Parliament in order to force through his agenda. Similarly, in 2010 in the Canadian Parliament, Stephen Harper did the same thing in order to... He was running a minority government at the time and overcame an opposition coalition against him and won the next election. These are not things that are out of bounds or ridiculous. Actually, the ridiculous suggestion came from Rory Stewart just last hour, whereby he said he'd set up a parallel Parliament if a future Prime Minister tried to force through no deal in that way. Well, actually, Parliament voted to put no deal on the table when they voted to trigger Article 50. And if MPs didn't know what they were voting for a couple of years ago, that's on them, not on any future Prime Minister.
Yeah, this is what Rory Stewart said. He said, "We will bring him down, Boris Johnson. You never lock the doors on Parliament." Ultimately, this is going to see the Conservative Party implode, though, isn't it?
Not really. Rory Stewart leads a small fraction within the Conservative Party. He achieved just 19 votes today. And if you look at the number of MPs that rebelled against the government yesterday, it was just 10. The government won the sort of preventing no deal motion proposed by Jeremy Corbyn and a coalition of opposition MPs, of hardcore Remainers who want to take any negotiating clout away from the government. They lost that. It's clear there's a majority in Parliament to deliver that sensible, pragmatic Brexit that whoever takes over the leadership of the Conservative Party, all of those top-tier candidates have been saying they would seek to do. It's right to leave no deal on the table, because otherwise you don't have as strong hand as you could in those future negotiations.
OK, we'll see what happens in next week's ballot. Tom Harwood, thank you very much indeed.